knows there's a place for us where we could go, where we could be alone. Between city lights, we don't have to hide. I wanna go, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? I can't understand why we can't hold hands, but they don't know what we have is real love. Aren't you sick and tired of having to hide? I know a place, do you wanna follow? There's something in the air, I can't explain it, but it's there. Ain't nobody gonna find us in our secret love affair. I don't wanna have to hide no more, it shouldn't be unfair. I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow? Do you wanna follow? Baby, do you wanna follow? Come with me, do you wanna follow? Baby, can't you see that? I wanna go, and I wanna know, do you wanna follow?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Livestream. Just saw I had a pile of mail here before the stream got started, and thought I'd open it on stream. It turns out the growth was benign, so that's good. Also, no, it's a joke. This is the scummiest bullshit. It's the wrong. This is the scummiest bullshit. This is from domainnetworks.com. Date of notice April 17th, 2023. Website fpvknowitall.com. Number EPG 17499. How to make a payment. Instant payment online. By mail. Website domain authority includes 12-month term on domain networks. Listing maintenance. To ensure listing by June 1st, 2023, please submit payment amount $289. Return by June 1st. Return by June. I don't know what this is, but apparently I need to send them $289 by June 1st. It's a complete scam. It's nothing. They just look in online databases of like domains, and then they send you something that looks like a bill, and they hope you pay them. It's marked marketing services in the upper corner as their little way of saying, we're not just lying to you. Annual website domain listing. Yeah, they will list your website on their... it's to trick you into thinking it's a re-up for your domain registration. But it's not. It's a lie. I got the same thing for reasons which aren't important to the story. I am registered as a federal contractor. And there's a database called SAM. The SAM database is a national database of people who do business with the government sometimes. If you've ever had a federal contract, eventually they'll ask you to register on SAM. Well, the SAM database is public, including, among other, so like you could just look them up like a domain, like a Yellow Pages. And so then people will go through the SAM database and look at your contact information in the SAM database and send you an email and say, hey, do you want help renewing your SAM registration? Pay us $500. It's like, you don't have to pay $500 to renew your SAM registration. You just go to the website, you click renew, and that's it. But they're like, oh, your registration's about to expire. Pay us $500. So scummy. So scummy. So that's going right in the trash. It's going right in the trash. I finished my drink before the stream began, so this is off to a good start. Yes, indeed, it was mail time with JB. Mail time. Oh, okay. Let's get down to it. I am going to be monitoring your questions. I'm going to be answering your questions, and Blunty is going to be monitoring your questions. Blunty is sitting there in the background, the voice from God.
Hello.
He's how you doing, Blunty? How you doing tonight?
Good. We're here to get all the questions in. If you've got questions, hopefully. JB's got answers. Hopefully.
I will, or at least just blathering nonsense, one of the two. But while I am blathering nonsense, Blunty's going to be keeping an eye on the chat and queuing up questions for me to answer. In fact, we got some questions starting to be queued up already. But before we do that, can I just show you guys? This is the coolest damn thing. This is the slicer software for this Bamboo X1 Carbon that I got. This new 3D printer. Look at this nonsense. I can just look at it whenever I want. Yeah, there's a camera built in. I know that's not new. I know Octoprint can do that. Look, I can just turn the lamp on and off. Nah, I want it off. Okay, turn it on. I can see which filament. It reads the filament from a little RFID tag in the filament spool. So when you put the filament in the AMS unit on the top of the printer, it automatically knows the type and color of the filament. And if I want to start a print right now, I could do that. We can just start a print. Just boom, send it right to the... I thought about starting a print, here on the live stream. We could just watch it print. I don't actually have anything I need to print right now. I just thought I'd show that off, though. That's so damn cool. So damn cool. Yeah, what do I got? Let's see. Look, I just hit this button. Which filament do you want to use for this print? And if I just hit, which button? Where's the button? Synchronize filament list from AMS. It just reads the filament from the AMS based on their RFID tag. That is freaking cool. It's so cool. I was just finishing. I was just about to start another print, but I don't actually have the little the file for it. Anyway, what do I model with? Dream Free FPV wants to know. Nothing. I just use other people's models. I just print things mostly. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to answer your questions. Blunty is going to be pulling your questions from the YouTube chat. We're going to start the stream off by taking some questions from the YouTube chat. We're going to take questions from the Discord as well. Does it come pre-tagged, asks Bloated Goat. Bloated Goat, if you buy the bamboo filament, it comes pre-tagged. If you buy third-party filament, you can just go into the printer and say what type of filament it is. You have to manually do it, which is not as nice. It is quite an incentive to buy bamboo filament just because it's so damn cool to just put the filament in the AMS and it just knows what type it is. And then when you slice the file, it knows. You tell it, I want it to be PLA, gold PLA for the first one and orange PLA for the second one. Whatever, if it's doing multiple colors. Pretty freaking cool. Very cool. I'm going to be taking your questions from the Discord. These folks over here are my patrons. Print your 1000th Benchy, Eric Toft says. Yes. The very first thing I did when I got this printer was print a Benchy. That's a 28-minute Benchy. That's not even the fastest profile. And you can't see the details, but it's pretty freaking clean. But a 28-minute Benchy is no slouch. I mean, that's fast for a Benchy. Not like world record fast, but pretty damn fast. These folks over here in the Discord server are my patrons. If you want to join the Discord server, you can join my Patreon. There's a link in the video description. One of the many benefits. Now, we will be giving them a little bit of priority because they pay the bills. And if you want to make sure that I read your question on the stream, hit the $ right here and leave a super chat. That is the only way to be sure that I read your comment on stream. Other than that, it's all just, take your chances and see if your question stands out and gets picked. Julian Chacon wants to know, does anyone have a link to the Discord? You have to join the Patreon to get a link to the Discord. That is one of the few things I hold back for patrons only. I did a little bit of modeling Dream for FPV with Fusion 360, but I wasn't very good at it. It was fun while I was working on it, but it's a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, Elijah. That's what it comes with. Yeah. If you do not get your question answered, don't worry. You can always email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I clear my inbox about once a day. Maybe it might take me a little longer to get to your question. Here's the thing. I look at my inbox and it's got 60 messages unread. And the first thing I do is I just start at the top and I start answering messages. And eventually I hit a message that is mildly annoying or complicated, and because 40% of the messages I answer require no thought whatsoever. I know the answer, I know that what you need to do, and I just shoot it off and I delete the message and that's the end of it. So eventually I hit a message that requires some thought and I go, oh, and then I skip it and I go to the next one. And that process continues. So if your message is particularly complicated, then it might take me longer than a day or two to get to it. I would get back around to it and go, okay, finally I'll get this one. But for the most part. So email me if I don't read you on the stream. Let's go ahead and get started, though. Do you like the Skyzone Sky 04X? Asks Z Officiel. Yes. Yes, I do. It's a great goggle. One of the best. Especially now that Skyzone has fixed, supposedly, some of the issues with their receiver module. It's a great goggle. There's a lot to like about it. And it's at a, compared to the price of the Orca or the HC0 goggle, it's at a pretty reasonable price. Especially if you get a used one for $350. It's a pretty good deal. Julian Chacon says, first day using my Boxer on the sim. It's so hard. Does it really just boil down to stick time? I mean, to some degree, yes, Julian. You can practice with intent and maybe get better. And there may be things that an expert could tell you to give you little tips to improve faster. But yes, it is just stick time. The longer you do it, the more second nature it will become and the better you will get. Yeah. So now, and the confusing thing is that some people practice for 10 hours and are immediately very good. Mostly children with their fresh brains and their reflexes and their neurotransmitters. Mostly children who have not been beaten down by life, have not ruined their brains and their bodies with I won't even say what. And they're just like, oh, this is easy. Why is it so hard for you, Grandpa? And you slap them and you say, who bought you that computer? I'm sorry, what? But, yeah, it's stick time. It's mostly stick time. It's Blunty points out you should try all the modes. I disagree. Everyone should fly mode 2. Is that what you're suggesting, Blunty? Mode 1? Mode 3?
I am, yeah. Just because personally, if I had started with mode 2, I would have been one of the people who took a long time to get good. But because I started with mode 3, I happened to find some innate ability I had from video games, and I was able to fly around a racetrack in like the first hour.
Yeah, but now you fly mode 3, and you're a pariah. So I don't know if it was worth it. I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say it was worth it.
Fair enough.
Oh, he's going to be nice because he's the producer. He's not going to argue with me right now. He's going to just back off. All right, fair enough.
Right side throttle gang. That's
right side. All right. What Blunty is suggesting is that there are different ways of mapping the throttle, yaw, pitch, and roll to the sticks. And mode 2 is what's commonly used with the throttle and yaw on the left, pitch and roll on the right. But if you're very, very used to video games, mode 3, especially first-person shooters, mode 3 will put the yaw and roll, which is like camera tilt and slide on a first-person shooter. It will put them where you kind of your brain might expect them to be. And some people think that mode 3... Is it mode 3, Blunty, that matches an FPS?
For me, I think it was actually Battlefield helicopters that I'm mirroring with my mode 3.
Interesting. So
yeah, I'm not sure that it doesn't. To me, first-person shooter doesn't necessarily mesh with how I'm thinking about it. It's possible.
Yeah, me either. I play FPSs. I don't claim to be good at them, but I have no problem going from an FPS to flying a drone.
I'm also a PC gamer, so I'm not really I don't have the ingrained sticks from the console controllers until I fly Battlefield, and I need to switch to the controller to like fly the plane or fly the copter. So
let's see if we can find a good graphic here to help people understand what we're talking about. So here we go. So mode 1, let me zoom in here. Mode 1 has rudder on the left, aileron on the right, and elevator on the left and throttle on the right. Now, I think that's the roll and yaw that is most like confusing to people who play FPS, because rudder makes the quadcopter or roll. I'm sorry, aileron or roll makes the quadcopter slide left and right, right? Which, oh God, I don't even know. I just pick up a controller and I do it. Hold on. Jesus.
It would be left on the left stick typically.
Yeah, the left stick, and the right stick is your aiming, right? And that's yaw.
You'd be yawing to turn the camera. Yeah.
Yeah. So which mode matches? I think it's mode 4. Oh, they've only got
3.
mode 1 and 2. Is it
mode 3 or mode 4, right? And then it just depends on where you want the throttle.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Here we go. Yeah, so mode 3 is going to put yaw on the right and roll on the left, and mode 4 is going to put yaw on the right and roll on the left. And I think that a console gamer is going to want mode 4, because that's going to put tilting up, down, and looking left, right on the right stick, which is where they expect it to be, and then sliding, which is roll, on the left stick. So, yeah, try the different modes, and maybe you'll find one of them more intuitive to you. But I would encourage you to try to fly mode 2, because the vast majority of people in the RC hobby fly mode 2. And so if you learn to fly mode 4, it will be very difficult for if you're at an event and somebody says, oh, hey, do you want to fly my quadcopter? You can't, because you only fly mode 4. You'd have to remap the controls, which is not impossible, but it's not as likely. So mode 2, it's the convention, everybody flies it. It'd be like if you lived in the UK, but you could only drive a left-hand side drive car. You just couldn't drive a car. So there you go. But I will say, I have heard from people who said, I tried to fly Mode 2. It would not click with my brain. And the minute I flew Mode 3 or Mode 4, it just clicked. And that's just it. And if that's you, then I'd rather have you enjoying the hobby than struggling with something that's not going to work. Now, one IFPV says, what about those people that trigger JB by wanting inverted pitch? Oh, as long as you're going to fly Mode 4, sure, why not invert the pitch stick too? Sure, go for it. You're already a pariah. Go do what you want over there in a cave by yourself, you dirty weirdo. Yeah, invert the pitch stick. There's one guy here in Knoxville who accidentally set his very first quadcopter up with yaw inverted. Learned to fly that way, and now he just flies with yaw inverted on all his quads. And it's like, okay. All right. Well, way to start us off. I got a question here from ZShark216, who says, I just got a brand new quad, but I'm scared to break it, and I don't want to go through that mess. Any tips? Z-Shark, this is the perpetual challenge in FPV, which is that if you break your shit, then you can't fly anymore, and that's bad. But if you are forever scared of breaking your shit, then you will not have any fun, and you will progress slower. And you have to figure out where the balance is there. If you have infinite budget, then buy a bunch of quads, stop being scared, and go break your shit. And you'll be a great... Some of the best pilots I know, the people who advanced the fastest, are the people who had the money to break their shit all the time and not care about it too much. I'm looking at you, Cricket FPV. I don't know where Cricket gets the money. I don't want to know. It's none of my business. But Cricket FPV breaks more GoPros and other stuff than anybody I know. And somehow he's always got another one. Good for him. And I remember when he first got into FPV, when I first saw him, and I thought, who's this guy? He's not that good. And he very, very quickly got to be very, very good. And I think part of the reason he did that was because he just went hard every time, broke his shit, and wasn't afraid of it. Now, not everybody can do that. Realistically, if you break your shit and you don't have money to buy new shit, now you can't fly and you won't be good. So let's assume that you just don't have the money to just break shit and not care. The next step is the simulator. Practice in the simulator. Do hard stuff in the simulator. Eventually you do have to do it in real life, but it'll help you minimize the breaking of stuff. And then you got to figure out what is the most durable stuff you can fly. Some stuff is more durable than others. Some stuff flies better than others. There's a balance there. And finally, accept that you're going to break it. If you start doing stuff that pushes your envelope at all, you're going to break it. I could fly every day and not crash ever, and it would be the most boring flying ever. The minute you try to do something difficult, you're going to start breaking things. That's a fact, but that's part of it. That's just part of it. Remy Tim thinks Cricket makes that OnlyFans money. If Cricket's got an OnlyFans, that's going to sound wrong. I was going to say, if Cricket's got an OnlyFans, I want to know what it is. Not because I want to subscribe to it, but I would like to know if he has an OnlyFans because I think that'd be hilarious. I'd like to pick on him about it. Fishy wants to know. Fishy, thank you for being a patron. Fishy's over in the Discord server, and you can join Fishy by becoming a patron. There's a link in the video description to my Patreon. Fishy says, I'm still finishing up work, so I'm going to drop my questions in. What's the relationship between PID gains and filtering? I've heard less filtering means you can push gains higher, but I've not been able to find further explanation for the relationship. Fishy, the filters and the D gain are opposed to each other. The P and the I gain are largely independent of the filtering. Okay, so just set them aside. But the D gain is opposed to the filtering. And what I mean by that is having lower filters, more filtering, filter sliders to the left. That provides more filtering of noise and more delay. Having higher D gains amplifies noise. And so what you want to get the best flying quad is the least filtering you can get with the highest D gains. Well, the D gains need to be high enough. You don't literally want to just turn them as high as they can go. But generally, a quad with higher D gains and less filtering will fly better. However, by going to higher D gains and less filtering, you also get more problems with noise. You're letting more noise through. So problems with noise can result in hot motors or even smoked motors, trilling oscillation, rough sounding motors, and sometimes, unwanted movements when flying, little tick, tick, tick movements. So your goal when tuning is to minimize the amount of filtering you can get away with and maximize the D gain. And the limit on that will be the mechanical and electrical characteristics of the quadcopter, of the build. So a quadcopter that has a well-designed frame with very little resonant problems and clean, just stiff, no resonance, a frame like the AOS-5 from Chris Rosser. That frame is going to allow you to lower your filters and raise your D gains more without getting hot motors because the frame itself has better noise characteristics. Motors with new smooth bearings are going to let you lower your filters and raise your D gains more. What's going to happen if you have a quadcopter that is mechanically bad is you're going to lower your filters, you're going to raise your D gains, you're going to get hot motors and problems, and you're going to have to back off again. So there's a relationship there, which is that if you lower your filters, if you crank your filters so you have a lot of filtering, then you can also raise your D gains super high without causing problems because the D gains will be amplifying the noise and the filters will be filtering it out, but you'll have a ton of latency and the quad won't fly well. So there's a balance between the amount of D gain, the amount of filtering, and the amount of mechanical noise in the quad, and then how good you can get the quad, how much you can get away with, and how good you can get the quad to fly. I wonder if I have just made things more complicated instead of answering your question, but if you want to know more about this topic, Chris Rosser has a great PID tuning video that sort of helps explain it. Betaflight PID tuning, the easy way to a great PID tune. It's a 35-minute video. It is 1,000% worth your watching. He goes into what is the PID controller? How does it work? And it's 35 minutes. It is the most concise and well explained you can make a topic like this. And then he goes into suggestions about how to tune. But if somebody wanted to learn more about PID tuning a quadcopter, in my opinion, this is the 1,000% the video they should start with. And just watch this and again until it sort of clicks for you or raises more questions. And hopefully that will make sense. Okay, wow, I have gone on for a while. We are going to start doing the super chats. We actually don't have that many super chats. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to go through these super chats and then I'm going to go back to answering questions from the YouTube chat, from the Discord. If you guys want to put a super chat in, now is the time to do it. And we will keep running the super chats until we run out. And we'll start with What's Name 99. Thank you for a $5 super chat. What's Name says, I am curious if the analog receiver module impacts the reception of the HD0 goggles when it's powered but not selected. I can't imagine any way that would happen. Would the digital impact the analog? Again, I can't imagine how that would happen. If that did happen, it would be a defect, and I think that the goggles are probably better made than that. So I would say no. The only way it might come in is if you have an antenna on the analog module that is getting in the way of the digital antennas. And then it could affect the reception. That's the only way I could see that going. We have got a $5.50 super chat, $5.50 Canadian, from Bannister Post. Is it a smart idea to disable low power disarm on Crossfire or others, like in Abando, where you could failsafe? How, and any negatives? So what you're asking about, Bannister Post, is the Betaflight option where when you disarm, your video transmitter goes to low power. And this is the advantage of this, as I'm sure you know, but just in case anybody else doesn't, that it keeps your video transmitter from overheating when you first plug in. Because the video transmitter is at low power, you plug in the quadcopter, you set it down, you get everything ready to go. Your video transmitter is at 25 milliwatts and it's not overheating. Then when you arm, it goes to full power and you go and you fly. But if you crash far away or in a bando behind some concrete and you disarm, now it's at low power again and you may lose video. That's valid. A way to work around that is to activate turtle mode and then arm. And when you do that, it'll go back to full power. And then you can see what the situation is without spinning your props. So that is a workaround. There definitely are people who will decide to leave low power disarm disabled because they want to stay at full power when they crash. The problem with that is that if you stay at full power when you crash, and you crash and are not able to recover quickly, then your video transmitter will overheat and you'll lose video. So it's a trade-off. There's no one right answer, but it's a valid concern. And I think a workaround is to use turtle mode and arm to force it to full power without spinning the props. In the light first for, thank you for a $5 super chat. When is the Bardwell frame 03 air unit coming out? Will it be just camera plates? That's not what you said, but that's what I feel. So in case you don't know, the QAVS JB edition, there is a new version of the frame coming out. It has a new metal front end. I'm going to show it to you because I'm so annoyed that it isn't out yet. And it's nobody's fault that it's not out yet. So I don't want to act like, but I'm just frustrated. Everybody is working as fast as they can to get it out. But I'm frustrated that the 03 air unit has been out for like 7 months now, and I still don't have my signature frame able to support it. That's annoying to me. I think it's annoying to the people who bought the frame, and it frustrates me. But I'm gonna show you this because it's the least I could do. And people may be mad at me for leaking this. I hope they're not. But if they are, hey. Okay, I can't leak the password. I can't leak the password for this. Okay, I want to not screw this up. I'm going to leak this and people will be mad at me. But if I leak the password, they'll be extra mad. Oh, they changed the... Damn it. They changed the password. I can't show it to you. Well, I'll have to show you just the render. There's an online Fusion 360 3D file I could show you, but so here's the render of the new QAVS. You can see it's got metal front end. You can take the 03 camera. Actually, this is a 3D printed piece. This render is a little misleading. It's a carbon piece. I'm sorry. This is why you don't leak things. This is a carbon piece, and it's adjustable to fit different cameras. There are a few other changes made as well. There's a new aluminum piece in the center to help keep the arms secure. Otherwise, it is mostly the same as it was. It's coming. I can tell you, I recently asked, where is it? And they said, still waiting on the factory. The factory has been slower than we would have hoped. So I can't tell you when it's coming. I can only tell you that it's coming, and I'm as anxious as you are. And I wish it were sooner, and I'm also annoyed that it isn't sooner. So, continuing the Super Chats. We've had a few more Super Chats come in. We're going to keep reading those. 8S Summer After Dark Edition. Thank you, Fortune Cookie. I got to get on that 8S build. I have all the parts. I just got to build it. Here's the thing. Here's the reason I haven't built the 8S quad. I'm going to build an 8S freestyle quad. T-Motor sent me the parts for it. Thank you, T-Motor, for sponsoring this build. The reason I haven't built it yet is because I don't know what frame I'm going to put it on. And I am trying to review a whole bunch of frames to try and figure out what the best frame for it is going to be. Yeah, that's about right. Thank you, Black Jungle. That's a good one. So I got to figure out what kind of frame I'm going to put it on. Maybe here's what I can't decide. Should I, when I build an 8S free, you guys can weigh in. In fact, I'm gonna make a poll in the chat. Start a poll. What frame should I use for my 8S freestyle build? It's not going to be a specific frame. A heavy, super durable frame. A normal frame. And here's the problem. I haven't made the poll live yet, so you can't answer yet. I can't decide if it should be a heavy, super durable frame because the 8S build is going to be bonkers powerful, and we need power. We need a durable frame, but it's going to be a heavy frame, so it's going to fly different. Or should it be a normal frame so we truly experience how bananas the 8S power is with nothing to hold us back? But maybe it'll break in a crash. I'm going to throw that out as a poll, and you guys can answer. If I were to build an 8S freestyle build on a 200-gram frame, then I wouldn't really be experiencing what 8S is like on a normal weight like 750-gram or 700-gram. I don't know. I'll wait to see what you guys say. Thank you, Fancy Flyer, for a $5 super chat. I'm an OpenTX user. I noticed the other day on their site there are no new downloads for the past year. What's going on with OpenTX? Is it time to go to Edge? Fancy Flyer, it's time to go to EdgeTX, okay? I would say it's been time to go to EdgeTX. OpenTX has always, I say always, not always, but OpenTX has been slow to update. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited that EdgeTX is a thing. I don't know the reasons why OpenTX has been slow to update. I believe it's true that one of the OpenTX main developers got hired by FreeSky and went and developed EthOS with FreeSky. I'm pretty sure that's correct, but I know I don't want to act like I'm like really in on all the ins and outs of the open source projects. But you can observe from the release schedule that OpenTX hasn't had a release. It's been very slow to release. EdgeTX is hot. It's moving. It has features. It's being updated. EdgeTX is where to be. That's what I would say. Mark Engebritsen. Thank you for a $5 super chat. Mark Engebritsen. And another $5 super chat. Does Mark have a question, or is he just want to give me money?
I put it on screen.
Is it talk about remote ID? Thank you, Plenty. Talk about remote ID. Oh, boy. Mark, thank you for your super chats. Okay, here's a rant about remote ID. Remote ID is coming. September 2023 will be the date of compliance for people in the United States, for users, not manufacturers. Manufacturers are supposed to have been compliant as of September 2022. If you look at all of the FPV ready-to-fly manufacturers, none of them have remote ID built in. None of them are complying. They are either located outside the United States and hoping that if they just go la 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 la, the FPV won't come after the FAA won't come after them. That's personal conjecture. That's not based on official communication from them. Or they're located inside the United States and they're doing things like Rotor Riot, where they sell them and they say this is for use, indoor use only, with a FRIA only, and so they act like they don't have to comply, to which I say Godspeed, and I look forward to finding out if the FAA will agree with that interpretation. It would be nice if they did, but I suspect they won't. I feel like many individuals will take the same approach. The reality is that the FAA doesn't have near enough resources to prosecute everyone who violates the rules. I suspect that a lot of people come September 2023 will do exactly what they have always done. They will pretend remote ID doesn't exist. They will be in violation of the rules. Some of them will get fined, and many of them will never think of it again. High-profile people, like me, will not have that luxury. If I am obviously not complying with the rules, I will probably be one of the first ones to get dinged. In fact, depending on how vindictive the FAA is feeling, I wonder if come September 2023, I will quickly get a letter from them. I wonder if I'm on their radar. I don't know. Maybe that's presumptuous of me to assume they know who I am. But if anybody in the FPV world is going to get attention, it's going to be people making content, because the FAA is concerned about public perception and public education. And so they want people making content about drones to be communicating their message to the public. And so I won't be just pretending it doesn't exist. I will be complying. At the very least, I will be maintaining plausible deniability that I am complying, or actually complying. One of the two, and I'm not saying which it is. What remote ID will mean for you if you choose to comply will be that you'll need to have a remote ID transponder on your drone. The exact nature of that still remains to be seen. There are some that are in development that are very small, very light, and not too expensive. And they plug into your existing GPS unit. So if you have a quad without a GPS unit, then you have a problem. But if you have a quad with an existing GPS unit, they go in line in between the GPS unit and the flight controller, and they read the GPS data. And the company making them thinks that this will be deemed compliant and will be sufficient to be compliant. We'll see. I think that right now, people are like, why don't you make a video about how to comply with remote ID? Because I think enough's going to change between May, it's now May 1st. Enough's going to change between May and September that I think that any information you have now is still premature. But we shall see. Mike Bergman, let's hope. I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. The FAA's game plan for enforcement is to get local law enforcement, to refer cases to them. And they just don't have enough people to do all the work of everybody by themselves. James Reedy says, I don't like getting insurance tickets, so I got insurance. I'll probably like to keep my right to fly, and at some point I will get remote ID. Yeah, there's definitely, I don't think that compliance is as much of a OMG deal breaker as some people make it out to be. It will be a little bit of money and a little bit of weight. I think that there are situations where it's more of a deal breaker. Like if you're a Part 107 operator, you need remote ID on all of your aircraft, even the ones that are under 250 grams. So if you fly a little 150 gram 95 millimeter with an Insta360, a freaking Insta360 Go. No, that's the one. Right? You technically need a remote ID device on it, and that could be, 25 grams or 20 grams all by itself. It's kind of ridiculous. But for a lot of people, I think that it will be possible to comply and to continue to enjoy the hobby exactly as you do. Dream Free FPV, the requirement that you not be able to tamper with, Blunty, I hate to put you on the spot because you're only the producer of this show and you're not actually like here in your role as a FPVFC member. But do you know the exact wording that he's referring to? Is it tamper resistant? What's the wording, if you know it?
I don't know it offhand, but it's very vague. That's the best way
Right.
to put it. Is that once you look up the wording, it's extremely vague. It doesn't exactly specify how that tamper resistance would be shown. For instance, you can look at the new product, the Drone Tag DRI.
Hmm.
The Drone Tag DRI goes between your GPS and the flight controller,
Yeah.
but it doesn't know your GPS signal is real. It's just taking data
Right.
over a UART, and then it's sending its data through. Other
Right.
people consider that maybe it doesn't even mean tamper of the GPS. Maybe it only means tamper of the device, whereas in like if you tamper with the signal that it's sending, that's a problem. Otherwise, it's not a problem at all. And if you're tampering with the data the signal's sending versus the actual signal, is that tampering or not? Right? There's a
Right.
lot of questions like that, and none of that is clear
Right.
at all. Also, the other thing to consider is all these devices are not being vetted. All the companies do is fill out a form, the ASTM requirements. They say that they've passed all the tests. Whether they've done that or not is up to them. They submit that to the FAA, and then it is approved automatically with a rubber stamp. So,
Right. So the fact that a remote ID device has a declaration of compliance doesn't yet mean that it actually has been vetted by the FAA and is good to go. The FAA is taking a perspective of basically approving every device that is applied, and then later they'll go back and look and go, wait, no, you can't do that. So it's very vague, and we don't know, but it's possible that the tamper-resistant requirement will be more lenient than the most strict thing we could imagine. And in that case, perhaps, I mean, I certainly wouldn't count on it because the FAA certainly doesn't have a great track record of doing things that we're happy with, but there you go. Black Jungle says, wait, local law enforcement enforcing federal regulations, wouldn't that be a little sketchy? Local law enforcement isn't enforcing the regulation. You are right. Only the federal agency can enforce the federal regulation. What will happen is that local law enforcement will be, let's imagine a scenario where a factory is violating the EPA by dumping chemicals into a lake, okay? Let's say that a police officer witnesses the factory dumping chemicals into the lake. At that point, the police officer can collect evidence. The police officer can take that evidence and report that to the EPA. And now the police officer has referred the case to the EPA and has helped them gather evidence to help them prosecute the case. That's what the FAA is doing with their LEAP program, Law Enforcement Activity. I don't know what it stands for. The idea is that the FAA will educate local law enforcement about the federal rules, and then the law enforcement can say, who are you? What are you doing? Okay, so on such and such a date, such and such a person was observed to be flying a drone. The drone did not have a FAA identifier on it, and the person did not have a trust test. And so then they take all that information and they refer it to the FAA, and then you get a call from the FAA who prosecutes the case. That's how it will work, and there's nothing illegal about that. Streets FPV wants to know how informed cops will be on the subject. Well, the FAA is actively working to educate them because the FAA wants them to do their work for them. What do you think about half complying with remote ID? For example, if I made my own broadcast module, so PyDog, at that point, you might be able to pretend that you had a valid remote ID module on your aircraft, because if a nosy person or a cop came around and pulled out their cell phone and they brought up the remote ID app, it would show that you were broadcasting information. And they might not go further and say, what is that? And check whether it's actually approved. The FAA would do that. It's possible that there are some scenarios where that would allow you to avoid trouble. But obviously no one can predict what that would be. Can't the remote ID be spoofed? Yeah. So there are all different ways to spoof this. The way that you would get caught would be if you were caught doing it and your drone was like collected and used as evidence or confiscated, and then it was determined by an FAA investigator that you didn't have a valid remote ID device on it. That is pretty far-fetched, but that's not impossible. Jason Hind wants to know, how can you verify that your remote ID module is even working? I assume you will use there. So the remote ID module will broadcast the information that it's required to broadcast. It broadcasts it using typically like low energy Bluetooth or long range Bluetooth. And it can be picked up by cell phones and other devices with Wi-Fi chipsets and Bluetooth chipsets in them. So presumably there will be an app that's publicly available that anyone can download that will show the remote ID information being broadcast in the local area. And that's how, presumably, again, we're just guessing here, because much of this stuff doesn't exist yet. Yeah, Blunty.
Also, it's a requirement of the ASTM if they did the checklist properly. The module has to indicate to you in some way, without aid, that it is working properly. Like it basically has an LED indicator or a beep or like an app that it forces you to use to make it work. But either of those things will communicate to you the status of the remote ID module and like tell you, okay, we're good to take off.
Gotcha. Greg Gerber says most people fly without a visual observer some of the time, and I've never heard of the FAA coming after anybody for that. Greg, that is not true. Damn, Blunty, I can't. I mean, is that one of the things that Philly Mikey got dinged for? I don't know. He got dinged for a lot of things.
Yeah. So I think if you add the context of, I've never heard of someone getting in trouble without a VO in person and not posting videos on YouTube, I think maybe that's accurate. Like there aren't people rolling around checking the spots, and you're not going to typically get in trouble for an FAA rule like that by a cop in the area. However, like you're saying, there have been situations like Philly Mikey, trying to remember his actual name, but Philly Drone Life, something like that.
Yeah, that's him. That's Philly Mikey.
Okay.
Philly Drone Life.
Yeah. Yes. But like people like him, I believe some of the tack-on violations were lack of visual observer, including, I believe, also like lack of the registration they needed him to have, and like there were other things there. But I think those are more tack-on things. Like nobody's patrolling your local area yet. We assume they probably won't be at all, but and random folks aren't getting in trouble for it.
The main way people get dinged today is that content is posted on YouTube or the other places on the internet. Then someone else gets annoyed and reports you to the FAA, and then it is egregious enough that you rise to the top of the FAA's pile of who are we going to mess with today. I've only heard of one case where FAA showed up at a flight field and asked people to see their registration. It was the San Diego field, I think. I actually flew there with Rotor Riot once, and we shot an episode. As one case in all of history. However, if the FAA has their way, more cops will be aware of this. And what's going to happen is that you're going to be flying somewhere and someone's going to be annoyed and call the cops on you. And then the cops will come hassle you. And that we know that happens. We've seen lots of Ken Heron videos where cops come hassle him. Now, Ken is a little bit of a troublemaker, I would say, and he'll be flying somewhere like a state capital where he has the right to fly, but also where there's plenty of police who are definitely going to give him a hard time. And, he stands up for his rights. But that's a situation where a cop would come and say, hey, do you have what you're supposed to have?
One more thing I want to add real quick on that is that I would expect to see at most major drone events moving forward a LEAP agent from the FAA attempting to attend the event and then possibly doing enforcement on site. I can't guarantee that, but that's what we've heard from LEAP agents. That's what we've heard that they are interested in doing.
Drone nationals, multi-G, IO, that kind of thing. Rotor Rampage, perhaps.
Yes, correct. Yes.
Ouch. I mean, ouch. All they have to do is buy a ticket, and then they show up, and then they're like, "Hey, I'm with the FAA. Do you have your whatever?" Wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be
I mean, again, I can't confirm that will happen, but that is what they've been indicating to us in meetings and talking to different people. So.
Wow. Suck. Okay. Well, that's good to know, but also that sucks. One more question on this topic, then we're going to move on from this topic. Iwandi says, for racing, my multi-GP chapter commonly flies an almost sub 250 ultralight 5-inch. So racing with sub 250 will be totally possible. Iwandi, as long as there is no prize for the race, you're right. As soon as there's a prize for the race, it's a 107 operation, and then remote ID is required regardless of weight. So, sucks to be you. There you go. Let's get a couple more of these super chats out of the way. Emmanuel Raphael. Let's see. Oh, I've screwed up. Sorry, JBDFPV. I'm not going to take that one. That's not what I meant to do. Blunty, if you could find that JBD one and requeue it, go for it. Emmanuel asks, did Newbie Drone keep me from using Red Pine on the BLV3? Evil Genius. If the BLV3 supports as the CC2500 chip, it should be able to do Red Pine. However, Newbie Drone has custom firmware builds for their flight controllers. In theory, they could have removed Red Pine from it. Ciati, do you have any idea about this? I don't have. I
got an answer for you. As far as I know, the boards with the diversity CC2500s do not support Red Pine. Or if they do, they're a very specific build of Red Pine that they had to custom build. I would check on Newbie Drone's GitHub. Newbie Drone has a GitHub for their firmwares to see if there's a Red Pine build. I know for some of those boards, though, they were trying to figure out how to support Red Pine because it was a custom implementation of a diversity receiver.
Oh, so they've got a CC2500 chip, but then they've got this diversity capability, and they had to modify the code and modify stuff, and they couldn't necessarily work Red Pine support in. So they didn't intentionally remove it to be mean.
Correct. Yeah, it was just their proprietary things where they chose to do their own thing, and that changed some of the support for the board. So I would definitely reach out to Newbie Drone support if you haven't, and then check that Newbie Drone GitHub for firmware. It might already be there, but I definitely remember a whole Red Pine.
So they're still working on it potentially.
Maybe, but I would guess by now, because that board's age, that it should be good to go, or not. You know what I mean? It's either done or not. Yeah. So.
All right. Emmanuel Raphael, I got £5 from you. Don't see a question from you. Thank you for the donation. PL Productions, thanks for £5. And a question, am I able to use the TX16S Mark II ELRS version with my FlySky receivers? No. The ELRS module can only bind to ELRS. So in order to use FlySky receivers, the best thing to do would be to buy a 4-in-1 module and put it in the back. I think Radio Master has a new 4-in-1 module they just released.
Hey, real quick, we missed it. We did Evil Geniuses, but Emmanuel had a question, so I'm going to put that up on the screen.
Yeah, I don't see it in the... Oh, sorry, put it up again. I clicked it. I don't see it in the... Oh, it's because it's not a super chat. Yeah, get it. Thank you. Hello, Joshua. It's your diehard fan from the UK. Thanks for the content as always. This hobby is tough love for sure. The time difference makes it hard to join the live stream. Emmanuel, I do a live stream Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. My time for the Europeans. So that should be evening time in the UK, at about 6 p.m., 7 p.m. maybe. So hopefully you're able to make this Sunday afternoon. But I definitely will do my best there. Quad City Bay Area asks, what's the FAA's reason for these new rules? Money? Power? Thank you for a $5 donation, Quad City Bay Area. Also, thank you for another $2 donation. The FAA's reason for these rules is, let's not forget, that Congress told them to do it. Congress mandated that the FAA implement a remote ID in the FAA Reauthorization Act, which is the... People ask, how does the FAA, a federal regulatory body, have the authority to make all these rules? And the answer is that the Congress passes and the president signs a law that it's the FAA Reauthorization Act. They do it every, Valenti, what is it, 5 years?
I believe that's correct, but sometimes there's delays and weirdness and extensions and stuff.
Yeah. So they reauthorize the FAA every 5 years, and that Reauthorization Act, Congress tells the FAA, here are the things that you should do in the next 5 years. And that is where the FAA derives its legislative authority to enact this and enforce this regulation. And so when Congress said, I mean, there are some people who speculate that the FAA would rather have not dealt with all this drone bullshit and would have rather kept on regulating aircraft. But the Congress said drones are a big deal, do something about them. And the FAA had no choice but to comply. So as far as are they motivated by money and power, I mean, I think everyone is. So, but mostly I think they are motivated by a desire, because like, does the FAA get money from Jeff Bezos? People are like, it's Jeff Bezos. How does he, does a federal regulation is not like an elected representative that a lobbyist is going to come and plunk money in their campaign chest. I don't know the ins and outs of Washington, but I feel like federal regulations are more insulated from the influence of business and so forth in some ways. I don't know. Maybe that's naive. I think that they're just trying to, do what they're told to do in a very clunky and weird way that is out of touch from the realities of what we're doing. But it's not like the king of the FAA woke up one morning and went, "Today I will screw over drone users. Yes, 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 they've lived in freedom for too long." Congress told him to do it.
I would also remind you, this is something, there are police officers who do heavy enforcement, who do light enforcement, who let people off, who get every single ticket, who sit out at speed traps and try to get every single ticket possible, who are mean to people, who are super nice. That's the same thing with everyone in every government employee position. There's going to be people who are like super stoked about their job and think that they need to do exactly the enforcements on the books. There are people who think like, we just need to make sure the best thing goes forward and we do the best thing for safety. Some people think, we need to do the best thing for freedom. Like, these are all their own people with their own opinions and doing the best they can within the bounds to do the thing they want to do. I just want to remind you of that, because like you said, we can often demonize the FAA, but really they're kind of just people doing jobs in different ways. And they're doing the jobs they were kind of made to do based on rules. Yeah,
absolutely. Good point. Let's close up this poll. Can't forget the poll I started a little while back. The poll was, what frame should I use for my ADIS freestyle build? And it is damn near 50-50 between a heavy super durable frame and a normal frame. I think, given the choice, I'm going to go with a normal frame, because I want to find out what happens when you take a normal 6S quadcopter and crank it up to 8S. But we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, now it is time. We're going to get back to the questions very shortly. But first, it is time. Oh, there we go. That's the page I wanted to be on. It is time to tell you about the sponsor of today's live stream. Listen, we're all here to get our questions answered. And when those questions are about quadcopters, usually, you just ask. There are no dumb questions. You just ask the question. But sometimes you want to research things that maybe you're a little embarrassed to have somebody looking over your shoulder. And you want a little more privacy when you're online. Or maybe you would like to look at content from a different geographical region that's not available in your area. All of these are things that cause people to choose to buy a VPN. And that's why the sponsor of today's stream is SURFSHARK VPN. Oh, you pay attention to that 2-minute timer at the bottom. We'll see how I do. Once upon a time, here, let's get SURFSHARK up too. SURFSHARK VPN. I am not currently using a VPN because I am not brave enough to stream through a VPN and risk. I should test it one day, and maybe before this contract ends, I will actually test it and actually run a stream through a VPN, and we'll see if the VPN can keep up with it. That'd be interesting. That's not for tonight, though. A while back, I had a game I wanted to play with my son, and it wouldn't work when we were on a local network. That was actually the first time I downloaded a VPN. And I was able to use that VPN to pretend like I was somewhere else instead of in my house. And was able to play that game with him because it didn't think we were on the local network. That ability to pretend like you're somewhere else is really useful if you're trying to watch streaming content that's not available in your region. Like, you know, the latest season of whatever your favorite show isn't available in your country, but it's available in some other country. Or you like to watch a local football game or sports games, and they're streamed in the local network, but not remotely. And you could just go and say, look, I'm going to be wherever I want to be. Seattle? Got one in there? United States, Seattle. Boom! Now I'm in Seattle. And I can watch the Seattle Seahawks play hockey. I don't really watch sports. These are all great uses for a VPN. You can even, there's an Android version of it. You can even spoof your GPS location. So thinking about remote ID, not saying that you should do that, but you certainly can spoof your GPS location on Android. SURFSHARK helps you protect your personal data from eavesdroppers, bypass censorship and tracking, and virtually travel the world without lifting a finger. SURFSHARK can be used on unlimited devices, including PC, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, and more. Even your Xbox. You can put SURFSHARK on it. I'm not sure how that works, but there you go. That's what they say. They got 24/7 support and a strict no logging policy, which means they don't collect your data no matter what. Right now, SURFSHARK is offering 3 months extra and 3 months extra with the QR code that is on screen in the upper right-hand corner of the screen or the link in the video description. And make sure to use my promo code when you sign up, because that's how they know that the money they paid me to say these things was worth it. And if you're going to sign up anyway, definitely use the promo code. There's even a 30-day money-back guarantee. So, yeah, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? SURFSHARK! All right. There we go. Thank you, SURFSHARK. Go ahead.
So where I get to chime in and mention the YouTube chat is not pulling it again.
Oh, I probably screwed it up somehow. It's updating now.
Oh,
now it's updating.
thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what. I did something to the window. What are the Seattle Seahawks? I know that's football. Is that football?
Yes.
I went a little off script there.
You were so close. I was like, oh, he's going to get it.
I thought it would be funnier if I said hockey. I was pretty sure it was football, but I thought it'd be funnier if I said hockey. Does SURFSHARK keep logs? Asks Joey W. This is not a SURFSHARK Q&A. They say that they don't keep any logs. They say that they don't keep logs because there have been other companies in the past who were VPN providers who said they didn't keep logs, and then later it turned out that they were keeping logs. So, like, I can't personally guarantee you SURFSHARK doesn't keep logs, but I can tell you that they say they don't keep logs, and that's something. A lot of people in the chat chimed in the previous week, and they were like, oh yeah, SURFSHARK is great because it works really well with BitTorrent. Oh, interesting. I also don't BitTorrent things because that's illegal too. And I always obey the rules. All right. Let's take a pause on the Super Chats. I'm going to answer some more chats from the regular stream. And then we'll come back and we'll pick up the Super Chat. So definitely, I see we got a couple Super Chats queued up, but I've been going for a while, and I want to make sure I don't ignore the people in the regular chat. That would just be rude. Let's see here. Blunty. What do we got? Here we go. Next one from Pig Dog. What do you think about half complying with remote ID? Oh, no, Pig Dog's, that question must still be queued up. We already answered that question. Let's try something else. Joey W. on the Discord wants to know, does shielding the GPS leads with copper foil and grounding the foil help with GPS acquisition, or is it supposed to? It's supposed to, and some people say that it makes a difference. Other people say, I don't see how it could possibly make a difference. And also, why would it matter for GPS and not like your receiver? And I don't know, but I definitely have heard stories from people who said I put the copper shielding around the GPS wires and it made a big difference. So there you go. I can't tell you that it'll work in every case. It's one of those things, but it is some people at least say it works. Carlos FPV wants to know, does DigiView work with the FPV WTF OSD hack? Carlos, I don't know the answer, but I wish I did. I do know that when you root the goggles and put WTF-OS on the goggles and put the MSP OSD plugin on the goggles, there are some combination of those things where the DigiView hack doesn't work. And it's not just the DigiView hack, it's the smart controller too. Not that you probably have the $700 smart controller. It breaks that functionality of the goggles. And I'm not sure, can anybody in the chat tell me, is it the rooting that does it? I don't think so. Is it the WTF-OS that does it? I'm not sure. Is it the MSP OSD plugin that does it? Which of those things is the thing that actually breaks it? To fix it, do I have to completely unroot my goggles? I don't know. Is it just DigiView? Does wide FPV work? Carbon Cage FPV says wide FPV works better. My understanding is wide FPV, DigiView, they all use the same sort of interface. And I haven't ever sat down and one by one tried to see which of those things breaks it. But one or all of those things does break it. And the fix is to unwind those things one by one. Or try wide FPV, because Carbon Cage thinks wide FPV works more reliably. Let's see here. Duncan Williams wants to know, I'm getting a yaw twitch on a 1S quad, running a beta FPV, 1S 5 amp F4 with ELRS, okay, parsed that, 1102 motors. As the flight progresses, yaw twitches get worse. Wow, that's a weird one. I mean, generally, I think that yaw twitches are a gyro problem. It could be like a damaged frame or a damaged motor, but I think it's a gyro problem generally. I don't know why it would get worse as the flight progresses. That's weird. Whenever you have potential gyro problems, the first thing I want you to do is to check the frame and the motors to make sure that there are no cracks or damage or loose missing screws, bent motor shaft, all of that stuff. You always want to do a mechanical check first. And then if the mechanical check passes, you could try to move the filter sliders to the left to have more filtering. Oh my God, I think earlier I said that to the left was less filtering. Oof. I got that backwards. That's going to be embarrassing when it goes up on the Livestream Clips channel. So you could move those filter sliders to the left to have more filtering, but you shouldn't have to do that. It should be fine out of the box on the stock filters. So unfortunately, it's either a mechanical problem or a problem with the flight controller is where I would lean. And then it's whether you want to sort of try to put a Band-Aid on that or whether you want to try and fix it, which might involve replacing parts. Let's see. M. Bundy has something for us. Speaking of wide FPV. Oh, wow. Wide FPV is... Oh, that sucks, Ben. Sorry to hear that, man. Yeah, that's pretty rough. I hope he manages to get himself together. Is it still available? Man, I would guess that it's still out there. Yeah, it is.
It went down for some time, and now it's back up.
It was down? Oh, man. Does he have a donation link? I mean, people use the shit out of it.
Yeah, there's a PayPal right there.
Oh, all right. Well, throw this guy some donation. Yeah. I don't know. Get off this screen. I don't want you guys to see my My PayPal logins. No. There we go. Yeah, let's throw this guy a couple bucks. I mean, not like 20 bucks is going to help, but I've definitely used wide FPV. So, yeah. Donate now. All right. Okay. Bison Goalie asks, I live in a very hot climate, 95 degrees Fahrenheit yesterday. I'm just starting. I have a Cetus Pro and an X, and both are overheating almost immediately. Any tips for keeping them cool? Bison Goalie, you can get a fan and put them in front of a fan, but if it's blowing 95 Fahrenheit air, I don't know how much that's going to help. I hope that they're not overheating when you fly. Yeah, you need moving air is the thing. You could try using low power disarm on the video transmitter. That's an option in the Betaflight video transmitter tab. If you enable that, then the video transmitter will go to low power when you disarm the quad, and that'll slow down the overheating. But like a little fan or something to blow on them is what I would do. We could just use a battery powered fan, and it will help. Skessex wants to know, can I have different switches on two different controllers perform the same function on the same quad? For example, switch 1 on one controller arms and switch SF on the other arms. How are you going to have two controllers controlling the same quad at the same time, Skessex? I don't think that's possible. I don't see how that's possible. The receiver will only talk to one controller or listen to one controller at a time. I don't know how you override that. You would need... Yeah, Blinty.
My assumption was he just meant I have two different radios and I don't want ARM to be the same switch. And maybe he didn't understand mixes. But maybe
does it mean at the same time?
I would assume, well, since that's not really a thing, I would assume so.
Okay, so Skisix, if you don't mean at the same time, if you mean like sometimes I use my Boxer and sometimes I use my TX16S, depending on how I'm feeling that day, you can, with Express LRS, you can have the same binding phrase on both controllers and the receiver will talk to whichever one powers up. On other control links, it's not always possible to bind to two controllers at the same time. And so you would need to rebind the receiver when you switch controllers. But if you're using Express LRS, then put the same binding phrase on both controllers, and they will both bind to the receiver. Whichever one powers up is the one that'll be active. At that point, you can configure whatever switch you want to control that aux channel. It's just how you set it up in the mixer screen. So you totally can do that. You would just go into the mixer screen on the radio, and you would configure which switch you want to control which aux channel. Let's see here. Indifferent Pineapple says, I ordered a SpeedyBee F7 Mini, put it in my quad, plugged it into USB, and it was completely dead. Got the replacement. It's also dead. Same cable and computer work with other flight controllers. Bad luck? I guess it's bad luck. Wow. I mean, I've heard of a SpeedyBee flight controller coming DOA every now and then. It's like a super popular flight controller, so it's hard to know whether they actually have a quality problem or just they're selling so many of them that a normal number of defects is amplified. I don't know. But SpeedyBee is always really good about replacing them, so I'm glad they replaced it. If they replaced it with another dead one, though, that's not super helpful to you. I would go back and see if they'll send you a third one, because this is ridiculous. I mean, if the same cable and computer work with other flight controllers, I don't know what it could be. Bannister post harkens back to his question about low power disarm. Low power disarm, he was talking about the control link, not the video link. Yeah, that's much riskier. So what I would do, Bannister post, if I wanted to be able to control the power of the Crossfire system, is Crossfire has the option to control the output power based on an aux switch. So don't have it go to low power when you disarm, because then as soon as you disarm, you're going to fail safe potentially. What you would do is you would have a separate switch that controls whether it's at high or low power. That's how I would do that. Let's see here. Black Jungle has the same question. Black Jungle, yeah, just in the mixer screen, set up channel 5, the ARM channel, set it to be controlled by S1 on one radio and SF on the other radio. Let's see here.
Can we go to that one too? What's the difference between inputs and mixes? I think a lot of people get confused because they seem like the same thing when we're using a quad.
Yeah, good point. Let's talk about that. And then we're going to go back to, and we're going to clear out some of the super chats after we do this question. Let's bring EdgeTX up. Here we go. And I'm going to bring up the simulator here. No, you know what? I'm not going to do it in the simulator. That was really clunky last time. But let's bring up the models. Hello. 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 Oh, shut the hell up. Okay, let's try this differently. No, shut up. Shut up. Why? Why do you think it should be Jumper T16? Oh my God. All right, this one. Oh, perfect. So if we bring up a model, we're looking at EdgeTX Companion. We're not looking at the actual radio screen, but everything you see here is a mirror of what you see in the radio screen. So this is going to be easier for us to navigate, and hopefully we'll be able to make it make some sense. So here we've got the setup tab, the inputs, the mixes, and this is all exactly what we see when we look at the radio screen. So what's the difference between inputs and mixes? If I go to create a new input, the source for the inputs are the physical controls. Okay, that's the first thing. The source for the inputs are the physical controls of the radio, and you can also set an input up as a telemetry sensor. So if I take as a source the rudder, now I've already got a rudder input, but I can take as a source the rudder, and I have all these options I can configure on my rudder input. I can choose whether trim is included in this input. I can choose which trim switch controls this input. I can remap that. I can change the weight. I can put a custom curve on that. And I can control which flight modes this input is active in. So for example, I could have 2 rudder inputs. Let me paste this. I could have 2 rudder inputs. One of them is 100% weight, and the other is 50% weight. So it's like having dual rates. That's going to be lower weight. And I can choose when each of these inputs are active. Okay? Like I could say that one of these is going to be active when I've got a switch in a certain position, and one of them is going to be active when I've got a switch in a different position. All right? Now, all of that stuff is funneled into the rudder input. Okay? So then I go to the mixes, and the purpose of mixes is to tell the radio what channel each of these things is output on. So here for the rudder, for the channel 4 mix, I've got as an input to the channel 4 mix, I've got the rudder input. And that part of what makes inputs versus mixes confusing is that the mixes also have their own weight, and they also have their own curve. So some of this stuff is duplicated between inputs and mixes. In fact, I think it's pretty much true that almost anything you could do in the inputs, you could also do in the mixes. You want a custom curve? Sure. Here's a custom curve, the exact same curves that are available. So it's a little confusing. But historically, the way it's been done in the default models is that the 4 main controls are set up as inputs, and those inputs are fed into the mixes. And that may help sort of, like if you want to have, these are your rudder inputs. And for a multi-rotor where you just have a stick and everything else is done in the flight controller, it sort of doesn't make sense why you would do it this way. But like if you had a fixed wing where you might want to have different rates or different expo curve depending on what kind of flying you're doing, you could set all of that up as the rudder input, and then the mixer just says rudder, weight 100, pass it through to channel 4. You could also set all of that up in the mixer screen. And you could just say, my source for this is going to be, boom, the rudder input. That's taking it directly from the stick. Or my source is going to be, I guess this is the rudder physical control, and this is the input from the inputs tab. So here the mixer would be just pulling the stick position directly from the rudder stick. Here it would be pulling it from the rudder input on the input screen. It's a little silly and unnecessary today, especially if you're just setting up a multi-rotor where you're just going to have 4 inputs and that's it. So
real quick,
Valenti.
Sorry, there's a picture from One Eye FPV in the Discord. If you scroll up just a little bit, that I think is a good example.
Oh,
of
nice.
This.
Oh, very nice. Thank you, One Eye FPV, for sharing this. So we've got sources, which is the actual physical controls, the throttle, aileron, rudder, elevator. Well, that's not even true, is it, Blunty? Because like the radio knows that when you're in mode 2, the throttle is the left stick, but the throttle input is itself distinct from the physical control. Isn't it? I guess
it's based on the model, I believe. It's based on the mode in the model, right? When you set up the model.
Yeah. So we've got the throttle, aileron, rudder,
we're assuming
elevator.
They're mapped correctly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sources can go through the inputs, which applies rates, custom curves, and other things, and then fed into the mixers, and then to the outputs. The reason that this diagram is a little incorrect is that like you absolutely can apply custom rates in the mixer. You don't have to do that in the inputs. You can do it in the inputs. You can also do it in the mixers. And then scaling output, that's correct. That's done at the output side. The outputs are scaled up or down based on the limits in the outputs screen. And then the output screen can also reverse a channel, but you can also do that in the mixers. It's like a Lego set. You can put it together any way you want. I hope this has been helpful. But this graph is correct. The sources feed into the inputs, feed into the mixers, feed into the outputs. There are many things that you can do in the input and the mixer stage, and a lot of those things are duplicates of each other. So why would you do it in the inputs versus the mixers? I don't know. It's just however it makes sense to your brain.
I think the only difference is that mixes is like inputs can be assigned to multiple mixes, but mixes have to be assigned individually. So if you wanted to set the same thing up across multiple channels, you could do that.
Interesting.
With
Yes,
the same
you're
input.
right. Oh, that's interesting. See, I'm glad we're talking about this. So what Blunty is pointing out is that, hang on. Let's say I want to have an input I want my rudder input to have, let's say I want to have ailerons. That's a better example. Ailerons, because a plane can have more than one aileron control surface, or more than one servo controlling the ailerons, perhaps. So let's say I want to have dual rates for my ailerons. So I'm going to have 2 lines for my ailerons. One's at 100%, one's at 50%, and I'm going to assign a switch, middle position for low rates, and high position, or down position. Oh, no, shit. Okay, that's fine. So that's not right at all. Hang on, that's annoying. Sorry, I have to do this right. Switch SA up or switch SA middle. So now we've got switch SA, which is controlling whether our aileron channel is full rates or half rates. Okay? And then we could take that aileron input and we could feed that into multiple channels. Source, aileron. Channel 9 is now outputting the aileron. Channel 10 is now outputting the aileron. That's interesting, Blunty. That's because I don't work with servos all day long. Okay? Channel 11 is now outputting the aileron. And those dual rates are going to apply to all of these channels. As soon as I flick that switch, we're going to go to 50% weight on all of these channels. Now, we could take this logic and copy it to each of these channels individually, but that would be super clunky. That's really smart, Blunty. Appreciate you pointing that out. Okay.
What I'm here for.
But Black Jungle points out that in theory, you can skip the inputs and go straight to the mixes. 1000% you can. Whenever I set up a switch, I just set up a new mix, and the source is switch, whatever, S1, S2, SA, right? Boom. That's how I set up switches. I don't set up an input for the switch and then a mix that pulls from the input. That's clunky and unnecessary.
I would go as far as to say it's also possibly a way a new person or somebody who's just not experienced with it can get confused, because the input name can actually be different than the switch.
Yes.
And then it's some sort of kind of get wrapped up in weird. The easiest way to do it, like you were saying, is you just go in the mixes and you can highlight the switch and flip the proper switch, and then it automatically assigns the right switch. And that typically makes it so it's hard to make a mistake.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's time for us to move on, because we peaked at like 400 viewers, and now we're down to 352. So clearly people are not interested in this topic. I'm glad I could discuss it because I like nerdy stuff like that. But this is no one likes this topic except me. All right, let's go back to some super chats. We got some super chats queuing up, and we're going to read some of them. Steve Trick says, I hear more and more about more efficient ESC firmware than BL Heli. Can you explain BlueJay and the others? Steve Tricks, I think what you're thinking about is the PWM frequency. Different firmware can increase the PWM frequency, and higher PWM frequency can give you longer flight time, especially with very small motors, very high kV motors. So it is most apparent in the 65, 75 millimeter class up to about 3 inches. And then from 3 inches and up, I don't think the PWM frequency changes the efficiency very noticeably. But especially if you have a tiny whoop, then putting BlueJay firmware on there can let you use like 96K PWM frequency, which can improve efficiency. What is BlueJay? BlueJay is BL Heli S is open source, and that means that anyone can modify that firmware for BL Heli S ESCs. BlueJay is an open source modification of BL Heli S that enabled certain features. The BL Heli devs have really they're not developing new features for BL Heli S, not very actively anyway. And so there was a time when certain features like RPM filtering, bidirectional D-shot were not available with BL Heli SESCs. The firmware just didn't support it, and these open source firmwares added those features. Jad Collado, thank you for a $10 super chat. I have a 5-inch quad that prop washes bad with heavier batteries. What should I do with my PIDs for heavier batteries? Generally, as the weight of the quadcopter goes up, you need higher PIDs in order to make it fly the same. The heavier quad requires more aggressive responses to cause it to move in the way that it needs to move. There is only so much you can do because the motors are only so responsive and can only make so much thrust. So you won't necessarily be able to get a perfect tune. In fact, in general, it's easier to get a better tune on a lighter quadcopter than a heavier one. But you could try turning up the master multiplier. That would be a simple thing you could do that might help. Mike Bergman says, Mike Bergman harkens back to the remote ID thing, who said, thank you, Mike, for a $5 super chat. Wouldn't it make sense if this 1 kilogram limit, this remote ID thing is so important for big YouTubers to be pushing it, like Mark Rober and so forth? I mean, sure, I just don't think a lot of people care other than us. It would be great if Mark Rober made it. I mean, is he going to do that though? He makes 12 videos a year. I don't see that happening. Also, I don't think a lot of people care.
He makes them with DJI drones, and DJI drones are going to have automatic remote ID in them, and he's not even going to have to worry about it. And most of these other big creators are not going to have to worry about it. So.
Right. They don't really work with FPV. Potato Jet, that's who we need on our side. He flies FPV drones. Pacific Northwest Pilots asks, has Vanover told you how amazing the new Hero session is? Yes, but he won't show it to me. Vanover claims to be working with the new super secret prototype GoPro Hero session. I believe it when I see it. Gen X FPV, thanks for a $3 super chat. Plenty, do you have a question from Gen X or just a donation? I don't see a question.
I did not see one either.
Okay, thank you, Gen X, for the donation. Quad City Bay Area, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm addicted to building quads. I'm currently building at under 253 inch using a 3-inch Gecko frame. I bought the Micro Apex and it's too heavy. Yeah, the Micro Apex, Ciati would probably... Ciati, where are you on the Micro Apex? I think Ciati would agree that it's too heavy, but I don't want to speak for him. It's a good frame, but it's a heavier frame, for sure. Cheech FPV, thank you for a $20 super chat. Very generous. Just saying thank you for all your informative videos and help. Brando FPV, thanks for a $20. Thanks for the knowledge. Thank you for the donation. And Skesix, thank you for another $5. Your question killed my stream. Single-handedly killed my stream. Look, Skesix, look, you did this. You did this. It was worth it, man. It was worth it. I always like nerding out on that topic. Maybe I shouldn't have gone on and on and on and on for like 15 minutes. And we are caught up on the super chats. That's not right. Not happy about that. I guess that's what it is. We're caught up on the super chats, so we're going to go back to taking questions from the regular stream. If you would like to interrupt everyone and make me answer your question, you can do it by leaving a super chat. Steve Jobs asks, by the way, Steve Jobs, good to see you alive again, sir. When flying in 4.3, the resolution is lower than in 16.9. And then Steve goes on to ask some questions, but is that true? I guess it's true because the vertical resolution stays the same and the horizontal resolution goes down. Like, I think we can assume that when you switch your camera to 4.3, it's not sending a 16.9 video with letterboxing. Obviously, it's not doing that. It's sending fewer pixels. In general, when you send fewer pixels with the same bit rate, you get better image quality because there are more bits per pixel. So, does that mean that if you switch your digital system to 4.3, you'll get better image quality? I mean, that's not completely implausible. It's not completely implausible. Blunty says, I would have guessed it's still sending the whole image. I mean, it seems silly to me that it would send well, I don't know the resolution. I'm just going to say 1080. It seems silly to me that it would send a 1920 by 1080 image with black sidebars. Even if that were true, it would compress down so efficiently that you would still have bitrate available for the image. But it doesn't make sense that it would do that. On a digital system, it seems implausible to me that they would do that. They would just send the data that's there, and the goggles would know that it's 4:3. I don't know about that. That's not implausible that you would get a little better. Like, obviously, you're getting less image off the side. And depending on your camera, when you switch to 4:3, you may get a wider field of view, at which point you're cramming more physical information into the viewport. So, I don't know. That's an interesting question, though. Dana Schlund asks, what is your favorite FPV drone radio for freestyle, and what's the best radio for the iFlight Nazgul F5 V26S? So I'm going to suggest we head on over to fpvknowitall.com, which is my website. And on my website, I've got the ultimate FPV shopping list. And it's suggestions for stuff to buy. And one of the things there is the controllers and receivers page. And we've got some choices for what you might get. I personally am using the Radiomaster Boxer as my daily driver. Some people would prefer the Radiomaster Zorro for the gamepad style. Those two, I think, are leading candidates today. The Radiomaster TX16S is a little bigger and got more switches. It's a little more expensive. I'm going to suggest you head on over to this page and you make your selection there. But the Boxer is my daily driver. For freestyle versus racing, doesn't freaking matter. It's all the same. Controller's a controller. Unruly Rotors wants to know, why would I asked earlier about what frame I should get for my 8S build, and Unruly Rotor wants to know, why does 8S matter to the frame in reality? The higher KV motors are going to be spinning at a high RPM and make a lot of vibration, so you're going to need a frame with more stiffness. The motors are going to be more powerful, so they're going to twist the frame more potentially. And the quad is potentially going to fly bananas fast and crash hard, and then it might break. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Let's see here. One IFPV wants to know, one IFPV has noticed I left my flip-flops under the table behind me, and wonders what is the policy in my house about shoes laying around. The policy in my house is that when anyone leaves anything anywhere they like, and then sometimes I clean up after them. I feel like my wife would disagree with that and say she also cleans up. So in the interest of marital happiness, I will stipulate that she cleans up too. That's not true. She cleans up. But my kids definitely, it is a complete lost cause to try to, like, right now, what I'm working on is that when my son gets up from the table from eating, that he clears his plate and puts it in the sink. That's where we're at. Because without a reminder, he will get up and he will just be like, cool, thanks for dinner, and walk upstairs and go back to whatever he was doing. So we definitely don't have a policy about shoes in the shoe bin. We have a, I got home and I threw all my shit on the floor in the middle of the living room policy. I'm guilty of that sometimes too. I think my wife would say that we have a Joshua took the flip-flops and took them upstairs to his room and took them off and went to bed and then came downstairs and was like, "Where's the flip-flops?" and then grabbed the second set of flip-flops off the living room floor and took them outside and then took them up to his room and took them off and left them upstairs in his room. So all the flip-flops have migrated up to Joshua's room and now she can't find a set of flip-flops when she needs them. I think that would be something she might say if she were on here. Yeah. So. I'm going to check something real quick. Every time I see somebody say that something is out of stock, I go look to see if it's in stock right now. But it's not. It's out of stock, so never mind. Because I like to be a smartass and be like, it's in stock right now. What are you talking about? Pacific Northwest Pilots wants to know, what's the benefit of running 8S on a 5-inch? Good question. When Bubby built an 8S 5-inch, and it was bananas, 8S 5-inch on 1500 kV motors. So that's a 4S equivalent of 3000 kV. And if I told you I was doing 5-inch props on 4S 3000 kV, you'd go, that's too high. That's too high of a kV. That's bad. Don't do that. And yet, when we flew 1500 kV 8S, it was fine. It was good. And I noticed that when we went from 4S to 6S, the sort of middle ground 4S motor kV is like 2400 kV. Okay? And if you go from 4S to 6S, the same RPM at the motor would be a 1666 kV motor. But nobody flies 1600 kV, 1666 kV 6S. They fly like 18 or 1850 or 1900 kV. And it seems like something about going to that higher voltage lets you creep the kV up a little more and get more power. And it seems from a sample size of this one quadcopter that Bubby built, it seems like the same thing happened. We were able to run the 4S equivalent of 3000 kV, a 1500 kV motor on 8S, and it was bonkers. Pardon me. You don't need it. It's a novelty. I don't think it's a good idea, but it was bonkers. So I'm going to do it just for fun. And because the Rotor Riot video got like 200,000 views. Abraham says, I've got a bunch of 4S packs. Yeah, you could build a series adapter and make 4S packs out of them. You could totally do that. CIDFPV says, 8S is for when your rig weighs 800 plus grams and has a spoiler on it. No comment. That's why I'm glad you're here, CID, to say the things that I wouldn't say. But I mean, sure. If you like to run heavy quads, put a freaking 8S up on it. It's bananas. Let's see here. Akifir, thank you for a $2 super chat. New Radiomaster Ranger, would it have a fixed XT30? It has a sticker on the bottom. We covered it on the news. There's a sticker on the bottom. It's V1.6, Blunty? Is it 1.6?
Correct. V1.6, yep.
I remembered. For all the times during the news that I got all the details wrong last week, I'm nailing it this week. 5 weeks between FAA reauthorizations. 1.6
years, but yes, you got it right earlier.
I did say it earlier. 5 years. So look on the bottom of the module. If it says V1.6, it's fixed. If it doesn't, then it's not fixed. Captain Gavin, thank you for a $10 super chat. I was able to build my first quad today because all the knowledge you put out here for all of us. Thank you so much. Thank you, Captain Gavin, for the donation. And Global Source, thank you for a $2 super chat. Can I just buy a 65 amp ESC and never blow up? No. ESCs will always blow up eventually. Abraham, you go to hell with that question. You go straight to hell. Because Abraham is pulling my leg, yanking my chain. He's messing with me. No, sir. No, sir. Rogalik wants to know, thank you for being a patron, Rogalik, over on the Discord server. Do most drones have props in view? Because I'd pay extra to have a clear view. What you want is a dead cat style frame, or there are some frames being developed now with X geometry that are designed to have no props in view. Like an example is, I think this is an example. Let's check. Where's the HD version? I want the HD. There we go. So this is the SpeedyBee Master 5 frame, the HD version. And do you see that between the non-HD version, this is the standard analog version, do you see that the nose is pretty stubby and you could see the props sticking out? But with the HD version, they have extended the front of the frame to move the camera forward so that the props aren't in view. In my opinion, this is a bad idea, but I see why they did it. It's a bad idea because anytime you've got a longer lever arm between the impact point and the next point of stress, you're going to have more force and potentially be more likely to break it. In addition, having the camera sticking out the front like this means that you're more likely to impact the camera, whereas with the camera back a little ways, you may be more likely to hit the arms. So the alternative to this is to do what's called a dead cat style frame, where the front arms are out like a T, and that changes the frame geometry. Then the quad doesn't fly quite as well, but you don't have the nose sticking out like that. I am so thankful that Black Jungle has shared this picture. I have never seen this before. The original dead cat frame was this has to be an Australian. Otherwise, why would it be an ostrich? This is the original dead cat frame. No joke. This is why they call it a dead cat. This person taxidermied his beloved pet. It appears that is not the only thing. I didn't know about this. He taxidermied a guinea pig into a quadcopter. And apparently an ostrich. This person has problems. This person has problems, and I love it. Ah, I love it. It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So that's where a dead cat comes from. That was the original dead cat. It's not even a dead cat layout. It doesn't even kind of look like a dead cat layout. It looks like an X. Why would they call it a dead cat? Anyway, I can't imagine where else it came from. So that's it. Alluvian says, didn't you laugh at this frame due to the soft mount stack? Yup. I sure did. I've got a whole takedown of this frame over on the Livestream Clips channel. Joshua Bardwell, Livestream Clips. Oh, man. Livestream Clips is my Livestream Clips channel over on YouTube. Where you can find clips, and it's great for, well, just catching up on the live stream, but also if you remember me talking about something. Here we go. Bardwell looks at the SpeedyBee Master 5 frame. That's my takedown of this frame. And you can search for all the clips. So if you didn't know about that, now you do. Joshua Bardwell Livestream Clips. Head on over there. Get subscribed. We've had a really busy month of April. We posted 4 videos a day or more in April. Got a lot of subscribers, so hopefully it keeps going up. It's being pointed out to me that may have been an emu and not an ostrich. I don't know that. You're right. I am aware they're different birds, but I cannot identify them by sight, especially when they're dead and turned into a quadcopter. We are getting close to the end of the stream. Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming at 10 on his channel, and I always like to give him a little shout out. He's going to start posting the link to the channel. Calvin Sims, thank you for the kind words. I see your question there, or your comment there. Ciotti's going to start posting a link to his channel, and if you guys want to keep the love going, head on over there when I am done. When I am done! Kickflip H asks, if the motors are rated for 4S, will they burn just by connecting a 6S battery? No. No. The voltage rating of the motors has more to do with their kV. You can usually run a higher voltage through a motor if you throttle limit so that the motor RPM stays within a reasonable range. Yeah. So, no, it won't fry immediately. The motor voltage ratings are pretty meaningless. Because they'll have a motor and they'll say, oh, yeah, it's a 3S or 4S motor. It's like, well, look, if you know what you're doing, if you know what props you're putting on it and so on, there are many situations where you could run it at a higher voltage. You usually can't go down to a lower voltage because it'll just spin too slow and it won't be any good. There's Ciotti.
Can you
Yeah.
Can you show the Black Jungle meme that he just posted? I know I rarely request.
Oh man,
those.
it must be good if you're asking for a Black Jungle meme. You do not appreciate memes. Is this iCarly?
Yes.
This is iCarly. Wow, how do I know that? I'm secretly an iCarly.
You have a child,
stan.
I would guess.
Yeah, but he doesn't watch iCarly. He's a boy, and he's not to the age where watching iCarly would be interesting to him yet.
Have you seen the 6-hour iCarly documentary on YouTube?
No. Should I? Is it just 6 hours of iCarly?
I actually think it's 2 parts. It might be like 6 hours and then 5 hours or something like that. It's Quentin Reviews.
Is it a documentary about iCarly?
There you go.
This is it?
There's 2 of them there. Yeah.
Is it a joke? I'm not going to play it on stream. Is it a joke?
No. It's a deep dive into everything about iCarly. And there's 2 parts.
iCarly is okay. I doubt I'm going to spend 6
also
hours
has one
watching
about
this, but I'm
Victorious
intrigued.
and other things.
I'm intrigued. How is he using iCarly clips and not getting takedowned?
I think it's just demonetized but not takedown.
Oh, interesting. Fair use, baby. Okay, well, interesting. I always find those Disney shows a little creepy. They're a little creepy. Are they creepy? Like, I don't know. It's something about...
Some of them are, yes.
It's like toddlers in tiaras. I'm like, don't do that to children.
The guy who did a lot of that stuff, I think his name is Dan something.
Dan Carlin. Yeah. Is it Dan Carlin? I think it is.
No, it's Dan something, but he was the guy who did a lot of those Nick shows.
Really?
And he was like...
I'm get that right.
Did some weird stuff.
Dan Schneider. Dan Schneider.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, is that the face of a guy who would do creepy things to 13-year-old girls on TV? I'd say it is. Okay. Yeah, those shows they seemed a little weird to me. And then I'm like, am I the weird one for looking at this and thinking it looks a little creepy? It must be me because it's on national television, so I must be the weird one. And then I feel shame.
Well, you'll find a lot of commonalities with the documentary as he goes through and talks about some of those very creepy moments.
That's relieving.
Yeah.
As I assume if something is on Nickelodeon, it must be wholesome. And then I look at it and go...
Definitely not true.
This is a little weird. Like, should kids be watching this? They are. Oh, okay. Must be me. Turns out it's not. Okay, great. Well, that's a great note to end the stream on. Let's just double check. We got these super chats. We got to clear out these super chats. Timeless FPV says, I like props in view, but I hate standoffs in view. Why is that? Standoffs take up the entire camera. Props just take up a little bit. And, that's what I would say. Delta Foxtrot asks, what Express LRS receiver hardware are best to use for a 5-inch quad? I like the Radio Master receivers. The iFlight ones are pretty solid. They put them in all their bind and flies, so they must be good. Happy Model has been good in the past, but I think they may be slipping a little just from my sense of, what the smoke signals are saying. Franklin Murphy, thanks for $13.99 Canadian dollars. And Connor C. asks, have you heard of Titan Dynamics? They make 3D printed planes and VTOLs. I have not. No! Titan 3D printed planes and spoilers on quadcopters are unacceptable. Will not have it. And that is the note that we're going to go out on the end of the stream. Siati, have a great stream. Thank you guys. If I didn't get to your question, by all means, email me or leave a super chat in the next stream. We shall see. Thank you to SURFSHARK for sponsoring the stream. And thanks to you, Blunty, for helping make this all happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. We'll be back tomorrow for the news.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about the Orca Y2K explosion. It'll be interesting to see what that comes out. So see you tomorrow at 6 for the news and throughout the week. Good night, everybody.